Hooray for Hollywood, that screwy ballyhooed Hollywood. I don't think I'm a singer. Anyway, today we're going to be talking about Steven Spielberg, movies, George Lucas. I mean, this is going to be a fun video. So some of my subscribers have asked me to tell them more about my life. And they wanted me to be a little bit more, tell them more about my personal life. And so I thought, great, I'll do that. So we're not talking about makeup, we're talking about Hollywood. So I don't know if you know this, but my husband was the producer of Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. I don't know if there are any Trekkies out there, but he was the guy. He designed every single one of the special effects. And it was a really big deal. And to create these really special effects, he gave the job to ILM. Do you know what ILM means? Industrial Light and Magic. And that is the company that was started by George Lucas. And George Lucas started that company because he needed the special effects for Star Wars, because that's the film that he made, and that's the company he created. Now, while my husband was creating Star Trek or producing Star Trek, at ILM, they also had Steven Spielberg working on Poltergeist and E.T. How about that? Is that a triumvirate? Did you see Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan? Do you remember the SETI eel? I love that little guy. He got the idea because one day he went out to get the paper and he saw this slug and he thought, oh my God, that's really gross. So he had the idea of taking that slug and having it go into people's ears. I think it was Chekhov. And he went into Chekhov's ear, and so that it controlled Chekhov's brain, and it went into his cerebral cortex. I mean, it was really gross when you saw it. So anyway, so when you see the film, check out the SETI eel. So time has passed. My husband worked on it for I'm not sure how many months. He would go up to ILM once a week to check on everything, to make sure everything was done right. When the movies were done, so Poltergeist was done, E.T. was done, and Star Trek was done, ILM decided to have a big party. There'd be a preview of E.T., and we'd all be invited, and we'd have a party afterwards. Well, so I was invited up also. So I flew up with my husband and went to see E.T. Well, wait, before I saw E.T., I got a chance to see where my husband had been working. Now, where he'd been working, it was called Kerner Optical. It was like a strip mall of industrial, buildings. But they called it Kerner Optical because they didn't want people to know that it was ILM. Because everybody wanted to get in there and see what they were doing. So I walk in the door, and there's this large room, and there's this model of, it's called the Reliant. It's a spaceship. It almost encompasses the whole room. And what is it composed of? They bought model airplanes, and then they took them all apart. And if there was a part that looked familiar, they'd dump it. So they put these pieces that you'd never recognize, and that's how they created the texture of this spaceship. Fascinating, beautifully done. I was so impressed. They had an artist working painting on glass, and that was the backgrounds. I was in awe. The backgrounds were they were huge, and these artists were truly artists. Their painting on this glass was just first class artistry. Beautiful, beautiful. I really was in awe of them. Before we went to the party, we went to this hangar. It was like an airplane hangar, and inside was this, it looked like a fish tank, but it was huge, this huge fish tank, and they called it a cloud tank. That's right, it was a cloud tank. And they would to create the clouds, they'd pour in oil, colored oils, and it would create clouds. And not only clouds, I think that it also created some ghosts. Now, I can't verify that, but I think that it was also ghosts because it was really very spooky. Well, then we go to the movie. The movie is, the first time you see E.T., it was wonderful, just wonderful. And it's wonderful today. So we see E.T., we go out, and I remember standing on these steps and looking down, and there's Steven Spielberg and George Lucas, in real life. And I must say, I was in awe. And I mentioned to my husband, say, look, there's Steven, there's George. No, I don't see him. Honey, they're right there. They're right there. Oh, you're right. Absolutely. And he goes down and, they all start talking together. That's one of my talents. You want to know one of my personal about me? Boy, I can spot a face a million miles away. Maybe not a million miles away, but I'm really good at recognizing faces, be it in old movies, in new movies. I really got an eye for being able to spot faces. I wonder if that's why, I'm really good at hiking and in finding my way back, of going there and there must be something that I recognize where I'm going. I must say, I think I've got kind of a keen visual sense in that hiking, I can find my car, I can recognize people. So we're invited to this party. Now, everybody was told there were no reporters, there were no cameras, we were going on a paddle boat, and we were going to have live music, fabulous food, and we were all going to celebrate as we were sailing around the San Francisco Bay. How cool is that? With George Lucas and Steven Spielberg and the rest of the gang. So I'm on the boat, and I've got my camera with me. Now remember, nobody's allowed a camera, but I am the producer's wife. There are certain perks. And I think they realized that I wasn't going to do, I don't know what I wasn't going to take advantage of photographing famous people. I was taking pictures of San Francisco or the boat or the food, what have you. And suddenly, well, not suddenly, but Steven Spielberg comes up to me and he says, would you mind taking a photograph of George Lucas and myself? We don't have one, you'd think we'd have a picture of us. We don't have one picture of us together. And I said, I'd be happy to. I'd be thrilled to. I start directing Steven Spielberg. And I'm telling Steven and George, stand this way, stand that way, and we'll do it this way, and we'll do it that way. I take all of these pictures, and they thank me profusely. Please send them to my office. Here's my card. I don't know if he gave me a card, but somehow I knew how to get back to him. We have a wonderful time. I'm so stoked. I've got in my camera, I've got pictures of George and Steven. Do you believe it? Fabulous. We get back to the hotel. First thing I do, sit on the bed, and I want to look at, I want to rewind the film. So I start turning the knob, and gee, there's no resistance. Isn't that funny? No resistance. I'm turning, and suddenly I'm thinking, oh my God. I open the back. There's no film in my camera. I've taken this once in a lifetime experience, and I had no film, in my camera. So that kind of tells you who I am. So I thought that this was a good personal story. Now you know.